I'm going to go with the place where I'm spending all my money right now, and that is Bloomington, Indiana, where my daughter is. And are they for real? Like, I know everybody's got them as a top 10-ish team in the preseason, but they are a team that, frankly, wasn't great for most of the year last year and had to beat Michigan and Illinois just to get into the first four. And eventually they were blown out by Randy Bennett in St. Mary's in the actual NCAA tournament.
In fairness, that trip was brutal, Jeff.
It was.
That's a brutal turnaround.
But what about the brutal trip that they barely got into the NCAA tournament?
That was brutal as well, yeah.
And we can stick here with Indiana because this is truly a massive storyline. The Hoosiers come in. Everyone's preseason favorite, no matter where you're looking. The Almanacs for the Field of 68's preseason favorite as well. Trayce Jackson-Davis returns. He's the preseason player of the year. Robbie, what makes him – why is there so much hype around him right now?
Well, he's a big-time athlete. He's one of those guys that stuck through. He's now in his fourth year playing college basketball. I think for Trayce Jackson-Davis, he hasn't been able to maybe showcase the ability to step out and shoot, and that's maybe limited his ceiling. But at the end of the day, what you're going to get from him. He loves to get to that left hand. I thought he was a lot better defensively. I thought he was a much better leader last year. But if he's going to take the next step and even play professionally at a high level and stick professionally at a high level, the shot making has got to improve. It just, you have to be able to spread the floor in today's game. And that would help Indiana astronomically if he could spread the floor. And I think that's a big question mark for him. But when you look at this Indiana team in general, shooting again is the question. And it's not just Trayce Jackson-Davis. It's, Race Thompson. Can Miller Kopp be more consistent? Does Xavier Johnson, who was he's more of a slasher, penetrator, get to the paint, play pick and roll. Their best shooter was Parker Stewart, and he's no longer on the roster. So there are question marks, like Jeff said, but they returned so much of their production. They've got a really good freshman class. And I think because of that, Indiana is the surefire pick for me at number one. That doesn't mean they're going to finish number one, but right now on paper, they should be the top team in the league because of who they bring back.
Yeah, I like who they're bringing back as well. I agree. And I think that, you have to assume that Trayce Jackson-Davis has been working on his outside game. You have to assume that Race Thompson is going to improve as a three-point shooter. Same thing with Xavier Johnson. I like the freshman that they have coming in. Hood Shafino.
He's awesome.
He's going to be a really good player. But looking at it from a player's perspective, right? For the guys who are returning in the Big Ten, nobody's scared of Indiana. Nobody's looking at Indiana like, oh man, we got to get ready to play Indiana, right? Because this is a team that hasn't really been in the top half of the Big Ten for the past couple of years, right? So I think you have to look at it in that sense too, where a lot of people on the outside are hyping them up, but for the people who are coming back, Indiana, for me at Rutgers, when we were playing Indiana, we knew we were going in with a win. Like that was our mindset. So
that's crazy. Think about that. Yeah, like that. We're talking about them as a preseason top 10 team, and you're right. You're saying like, they don't have that intimidation factor. They've got to earn that this year.
Exactly. I do think they're going to be really good this year. I definitely give them their respect in that sense. But just from a player's perspective, no one is looking at them like, damn, Indiana is the top dog.
Right.
They have so many returners coming back, which is why there is so much hype surrounding them. But Jeff, everyone's talking about freshman Jalen Hood-Schifino. What does he bring to the team?
He's big. He knows how to play. He can pass it. He's not a great shooter though. So that's the one thing is, to me, obviously their biggest need, they were really good defensively last year, but their biggest need, like Robbie said, is shooting. Yeah. And Hood-Schifino is not a guy that's going to go out there and shoot 38% from three as a freshman. They've got to do it collectively. And X has got to be the guy to me. His shot's funky, but it went in last year. It did. It went in, and it's got to do that again. And if he can shoot high 30s and everybody else can be a little bit better, Tamar Bates has got to be better.
He can be the X factor, Jeff. Tamar Bates can be a guy that I think takes that jump and can be a guy that makes shots from the perimeter.
And speaking of shot makers, like Indiana shot 33% as a team from three last season. Not fantastic. Miller Kopp comes in. He's supposed to be the guy, the shooter. What does he need to do in order to be that guy, Robbie?
Make some shots.
Fair enough. He has to be a maker.
He needs to be a shot maker. And we saw it in spurts last year against Syracuse. I want to say at 28, at Purdue, end of the season, made shots, got to his one dribble pull up because he had made a couple threes. You just need him to spread the floor. That is what you need. Miller Kopp needs to make threes and guard his yard. He needs to be able to stay in front of his man. That is a huge thing for Indiana if he can do that.
I think he's definitely going to be better than what he looked like last year. If you look back at his years at Northwestern, like he was always at the top of the scout when we were playing against Northwestern. Really good player, really good shot maker. I think at his worst, he's going to be a lot better 3-point shooter this year than he was last year.
That's just going to help Indiana so much more, especially with the front court that they're bringing back this season. In a couple months from now, when we're sitting here talking about Indiana, will they live up to the hype that they've received so far in the preseason, Jeff?
I don't know. I mean, listen, the one thing I'll say
That's
is
a soft answer. Don't let him off
Come
like that,
on.
Megan. Press him to the
listen.
fire.
Here's why I'll say yes.
Aren't you on the
Because
board?
Because I'm paying tuition. Because I'm paying tuition.
Nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with the 50 grand I got to pay. It's because I don't think the Big Ten is all that overpowering this year. I think there's a lot of parity in the league. There's no other great teams. We're going to get to it, right? The Michigan States that are generally the team that you do fear, Gio.
Yep.
And you don't right now. They're not overwhelming. So I think Indiana, because they return a lot and they've got maybe the best player in the league, certainly one of them in Trace Jackson Davis. And I love Trace. Can I just say, like, how refreshing Trace Jackson Davis is from a standpoint? Last year, they beat Illinois in the Big Ten tournament, which basically punches their ticket. And he gets up on the podium and he basically, where a lot of players aren't, he was completely honest. And he says, because he was really good against Kofi that game, really good. And he said, last time we played Kofi, he basically ate my lunch and I haven't been the same since. It just absolutely crushed me mentally. Like, how many kids would actually say that and be honest about it? I love Trace. Love him.
I just want to see him go hard every single possession. I think that there are times where he does take plays off. So can he consistently go hard and live up to that preseason player of the year hype? So Indiana going to be a fun team to watch this season.